The third article we're going to spend most of the time on, and this is a report you did with Aaron Schneidezon. Tren de Aragua is also a more convenient acronym, TDA, is this terrorist gang from Venezuela. I am hearing some incredible reports, and it's just like a few months ago, all of a sudden we heard about some apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado, and now I'm hearing it's in 26 states have been identified. Tell our audience a little bit about TDA, what's going on, what does the Trump administration need to do basically on day one?
Well, this is I wrote a piece actually not quite a year ago, and I said in it, if you haven't heard of Tren de Aragua, you soon will. And those are pretty prophetic words because at that point, I hadn't even heard of them. I was at a conference in Miami, and an expert on Tren de Aragua and crime in Latin America, Joseph Humeyer, told me about them. And I did a little research, and I thought, okay, this is not going to be good because Venezuela was exporting, I think 8 million people have left Venezuela under Chavez and Maduro. And they're kicking out lots of ones that they don't want to have around because either they're opponents or criminals or whatever. We've only taken probably 1 million plus. A lot of them are in Colombia and other countries, but still among the million are many members of this gang. It was formed, give or take a decade ago, we think, in the Tocaron prison. They are very violent. They deal in drugs. They do extortion. They pimp out, young women. They do all of the kind of rotten things that gangs do and organized crime does. I wouldn't call them terrorists because they're not, linked to the state. They're not trying to overthrow the United States. They're just trying to take over, networks of crime and make money. So they came in over the southern border. In many cases, they were caught, meaning like they encountered the border patrol and then they were released and told, hey, show up at an immigration hearing in 6 months, whatever, a year. Some of them were paroled in under this special Biden program, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, 30,000 a month from those 4 countries. Basically, they were allowed to schedule their appointment to enter the country illegally. And then they were given this status called parole, which is not really a status. It's sort of a, you're allowed in, but not in any really legal capacity other than we're not going to deport you. I've written a lot about parole. It was designed for very specific circumstances for very few people, case by case, a couple hundred a year. And it was used in a really egregious way under this administration to let in, like 1.5 million people. And they've gone to, they took over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. They basically went back to doing what they were doing in Venezuela, which is organized crime. We've found them now in New York City. There was the murder of the college student in Georgia, Laken Riley, was by someone who reportedly was either a member or associated with the gang, as was his brother. There have been cases in San Antonio, in Dallas, in El Paso. So it is creeping. And I think there was a report in Fox News recently that was referencing a Homeland Security report. So it's now a well-known phenomenon that has disseminated itself through the country faster than any other gang that I recall. And we know about MS-13 and, there's other foreign and homemade gangs. But this one, thanks to the policies at the border, has been able to get large numbers of soldiers, let's call them, of active members in an incredibly short time. And they've been very busy and everything from, smash and grab jewelry store robberies to petty theft, cell phone theft rings, pimping, and unfortunately murder and violent crime.
Well, it's a rather extraordinary situation. What would you say that the Trump administration needs to do to kind of kick in and really move the ball forward? Because, I'm in Houston, Texas. The advantage that we have here is that the police will actually shoot people if they don't cooperate being arrested. And we've just had a election, include a local election, where every Democrat judge who had a Republican opponent, the Republican was elected. I think we have 12 new Republican judges. They were specifically elected on stop the violence, stop releasing criminals back out to do more violence. So is that what we need elsewhere?
Yeah, I think, I hope that if these guys think that they can get away with what they were doing in Venezuela, in Texas, they're going to be sadly mistaken. And that's essentially all that's needed is law enforcement. You know, we've had these prosecutors in our big cities from New York to San Francisco that don't prosecute. They were elected with money from left-wing groups on, you know, sort of social justice, alternatives to punishment kind of ideology. They don't want to put criminals in jail. So you have these no bail policies where you can't have cash bail because that's discriminatory against people who can't afford it. And they're releasing people, criminals, time and time again out onto the streets. So we need essentially law enforcement at the national level and at the local level. That's what will take care of Tren de Aragua. First of all, stop the flow at the border, reinstate remain in Mexico. The supply will dry up when they're all forced to wait in Mexico for their entire process to come through. We need to finish building a wall or some kind of barrier across the length of the border so that people are channeled to ports of entry and places where they can be properly, I wouldn't say properly vetted because that's still not going to be possible, but better than they're doing in the field right now before they release them. We need to stop releasing them until we know who they are, until we actually know what criminal record they have. And if we can't find that out, maybe we should strongly consider not letting them in at all. And then if they are here, if they've been able to get in on parole, on release pending their removal hearings, whatever their status is, they should be fully accountable for their actions. There shouldn't be a special status just because you're an illegal immigrant. If I drive down the street and I get pulled over by a cop for speeding and I'm drunk, they will punish me. They'll put me in jail maybe, or fine me, or take my car away, or whatever. If you have no insurance, no legal status, no license plate, and they just let you go, what's the deterrent? There isn't one. So we have to take that person and do to him what they would do to you and me, except if they are here illegally, they should also have the removal process take place at the end of the criminal process. And, one by one, case by case, the word will get out and we will reestablish the rule of law. But I would say that's what we've lost in the last 4 years. We've lost it in our cities and we've lost it at the border. And I think the political consequences you just described and the national election that we had have shown that people's patience has run out and they're fed up and they want the government and law enforcement to do its job.